So this is a brief overview of the course we're creating for the Qlik trainers. We had started creating our own course in a collab site just as a way of drafting out all of the pieces that we were putting together. And Johan, who's the team owner, essentially suggested that because there's already an existing University Business Intelligence, UBI, DREAM initiative, because that exists as its own collab site for the project, he suggested that we actually put all the training materials in here. So I think that's an interesting idea because if you look and see site info, there's Johan as the main contact. All of the members of the UBI DREAM initiative are already in here. So to some degree, I saw his point. The downfall of that is a little bit that we don't have our own site specifically just for the course. We have to really integrate our materials around the rest of the project, but from a user perspective, that's actually more intuitive for them. So overall, the main, the piece that we've added in is a course structure. Of course, this is a Collab project site, not a course site, but we were able to use some of Collab's existing features. We're going to use the grid model of designing the modules. There's 5 overall modules, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the purposes of this session, I'm really just focusing on the first module, Data Essentials. And this module was really designed to be the on-ramp for Qlik. What Johan found in his first 2 rounds of rolling out Qlik training using the vendor demos was that if people didn't have enough information about how to get data out of an existing system, then they weren't really prepared to move data into Qlik and build visualizations from it. So this module 1 has really been designed in response to that and focuses a lot on data basics, data subsets, queries to extract data, and then quality assessments of data. So those are our 4 sub-modules to module 1. We're using Articulate for the self-created materials. What we're trying to do is weave together existing materials such as videos from YouTube or the vendor with material that we've either put together ourselves in Articulate. So this is an Articulate presentation.
Imagine analytics so easy, anyone can create visualizations and explore information in powerful new ways.
So I won't make you watch the whole thing, but that's just what is Qlik Sense. Again, we just used the vendor's overview because it's well produced and it gives a good sense of what the tool is. And then Qlik Sense roles. There's 4 overarching Qlik Sense roles: business users and business analysts, data architects, system administrators, and enterprise architects. The purpose of this course is really to train people on the business user and the data architect role. The UBI roles, meaning the central project, will perform the roles of system administrator and enterprise architect. There's also a lot of training out there for end users. This is not our focus. Our focus for this is the UVA employees who are going to take on roles of managing and visualizing data in the system in Qlik Sense. So again, there's our 5-module structure, and really this is a blended learning approach. Johan asked us to design this so that it could potentially be taught end to end, either as an entirely instructor-led training or entirely self-paced, asynchronous virtual training. And so that's sort of an interesting task in that we think in the way we've laid out the grid, it makes it possible for people to either watch a video where they're doing self-paced training, or the instructor can just skip over the video and really do that as an in-class session. And so he really liked that approach overall. So when we get to the end of these, we can just close out and go back to the grid. Again, so data basics. There's 2 different videos here. They give both, I think, a really nice overview. One is from a woman in the UK, IT Sophie. And I think she gives a really lovely whiteboard overview of data and data types and what they mean in SQL. And then one's a little bit more of a comprehensive, a little bit drier overview. Again, if you're doing self-paced, you won't have to do both, but they're both there as an option. And then module 1 for us, again, goes back into Articulate, where you can go along and, again, this is the what are exact numbers, approximate numbers, date and time, character strings, binary, and others. And then we'll go into data relationships. That gives you a sense of that. So going back. So that's really how we imagine people using the grid. I'm still in the process of filling all of that out, moving stuff from my from the storyboard into Articulate. And so that's the course structure, and again, that will be the main source of the modules. There's forums. We've designed 5 overall forums for that first module. One is the pre-instructional discussion. And that says, what is your previous experience working with data, either as a data analyst, data visualizer, or database manager, and what problems can data solve within your organization? And so the goal with these, the modules is both to engage people, get them thinking about data, getting them thinking about how they'll use data, again, and apply that, I think, to their own organization. Because again, what the feedback was that once people get into this sort of self-paced learning, they stop thinking, right? They're almost learning function by function, and they're not really thinking about what they're doing, and so they don't retain a lot of that information. So as much as we can use the forums to get people to think, right, along the way, that as they just learned something, now think about how you would apply it. And these are designed to be, you'd engage with other people. Now, because we're mixing classroom and self-paced, the forums would just be open on an ongoing basis. So if you're in a classroom module and you have a little team that can engage in between the classroom sessions, they can use these modules, or individual people who are doing it in a self-paced fashion can go in and see some of other people's answers and add some of their own. So for this one, database discussion, I gave them a data set to go to. That's a link out. I can show you what that looks like. See, this is a hypothetical university, and it gives the data in tables. So they're supposed to sort of look at this, and then they say, there are only 2 data types used in varchar, so you can see that in the data set. There's ints and there's varchars. But then imagine expanding this data set with additional tables that include the following: data types, date, time, unique identifier, timestamp, and text. What data can you imagine adding, and why would it be helpful? So again, rather than just having them do an exercise of adding and identifying, I'm trying to get them to really think about how data ties together and take a very simple model of professor students' courses and registrations and expand it out with additional data, and just to think about analysis that they could perform. So again, the point about these being they're less routine than some of what we see in the course structure. These are the chance for students to engage with each other and think more about the exercises and why and how they would use them. So the data subset exercise, working groups of 3 or on your own for self-paced, explore the Cora data set. So again, I link out to another data set here. And that this data set has flaws in the data. So I asked them to develop a strategy for fixing it and describe your understanding of the data set and how it changes as they explore, and then fix the errors or anomalies. So they download the data set to their desktop, and then they work with it. But really, again, this is the chance for them to describe how they would work with data and then engage with other people doing the same thing. Queries to extract, same idea. It talks about feature function. What does a feature function look like? Really working with SQL, select is the big function. Select is where you go in and you're choosing what data to select out of a database. It's really key because once you move data out of its source area into Qlik, you want to make sure you've selected the right data, but not too much. You don't want to dump entire source data sets into Qlik. It will be unwieldy. You want to really think about what you're selecting. And so I'm asking them to define a query to extract data from another data set, which is the NCAA basketball tournament from 2015. What data did you target, and what feature function did you write? And so that's a pretty simple one, but again, just gets them thinking about data that's outside the realm of what they would normally use. And their final one, actually, it's a little bit more, this is, again, more of a thought-based module discussion. There's 6 key topics: in quality, accuracy, duplicates, completeness, consistency, conformity, and referential integrity. Think about the data set which you will explore for your own organization. What data are important to your organization, and how might data quality skew or affect patterns in the data set? Be specific. Think of incorrect conclusions that might arise from inaccurate data, and how might these incorrect conclusions translate into organizational decisions. So again, this is a chance for them to really just think about the data from their organization. Everyone who's coming to this program is coming from really different parts of the university, and they're working with different data sets, whether they're HR data is really working with workforce, people coming from the student side are working with information from the student information system, there's financial data, so it's hard to write anything too specific for any one of those areas, but it's important that each student is thinking about the data that's important to their organization, because that's really the role that they're going to be playing. So I think in this sense, by keeping these modules open, these discussions open and ongoing, people can participate and the discussions can keep expanding as people learn. So that's the forums. So there's only one assignment for Module 1. We talked about doing a different assignment at the end of each module, but Johan liked better the idea of doing one project as the assignment, and so it's they can pick any of the data sets that are available, or they can use one from their organization. And then they have to identify data types, they have to explore the data using their SQL tools, they have to apply filtration techniques, describe the results, they have to clean the data set for errors and anomalies, what did they find, and then they have to create one visualization. And in this sense, the one assignment with the one data set actually provides an overview of everything that they've done in the 4 breakouts. Assignments, forms, course structure. We're going to put more in resources. Right now we just have the storyline files, but we're going to add reading materials and other sources from the vendor. And then we're going to have a test and a quiz. If we go back to the course structure, Module 1 will have one quiz. Again, we originally had a quiz at the end of each of the 4, and Johan specifically requested that we have one Module 1 quiz. We are debating right now whether we'll build that in we started building it in Articulate, so right now it's a standalone module, but we might actually move that into Qlik now. So I'm waiting to hear back from him on what he prefer. But overall, that's just a quick overview of how we're building the course in Qlik.